How is the tourism industry going to survive the effects of the pandemic? The next session is presented by Tourism HR Canada. It will give you an overview on how the tourism workforce has been affected by the pandemic and how we can rebuild. L'AITC travaille en étroite collaboration avec RH Tourisme Canada et milite auprès du gouvernement pour obtenir du financement fédéral et des programmes d'immigration en appui à notre secteur. TIAC works closely with Tourism HR Canada and advocates to government for federal funding and immigration programs that support our sector. Now, here's our next session.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Philip Mondor, President and CEO of Tourism HR Canada, an industry organization with a mandate aimed at building a world-leading tourism workforce. Tourism HR Canada facilitates, coordinates, and enables human resource development activities that support a globally competitive and sustainable industry and foster the development of a dynamic and resilient workforce. It's great to have you join us this afternoon. Many of you will know of Tourism HR Canada because we are responsible for the foundational labor market research for the tourism industry in Canada and produce information used by governments, associations, businesses, academia, and many others. We're also known for the professional certification system we oversee on behalf of the sector with 28 certifiable occupations. It's Canada's largest credentialing system next to apprenticeship. Today, I'm going to focus on what it takes to rebuild the tourism workforce that has been decimated by COVID and why this is essential to the industry's ability to renew or rebuild. The recovery of the workforce is the lifeline to tourism's future. Joining me today is Heather Elder, who is our Marketing Director at Tourism HR Canada. She will be moderating and will try to keep up with any questions you may have. This is a big topic, and I cannot cover all of the topic strategies that we're going to work on. But for the 30 minutes I have, I will focus on answering three primary questions. One, what's going to happen to the 375,000 displaced workers that we've lost? These are people that never returned to work since March, and those that have had some employment since then, but were unable to hold on to it because the businesses were unable to keep them. This is a key concern. We were struggling to find workers pre-COVID. And with these losses, our shortfall of workers expect to be larger when we recover. The second question concerns the workers that we have retained and the reality of the precarious work situation. Simply, this is mostly a case where there's not enough hours available for stable or predictable income because businesses are struggling. The challenge of how to retain staff under the difficult conditions that COVID presents is a real conundrum. Employers are seeking to do the best for their workers while they stay afloat, but they don't have much choice at times. They may have to lay them off, especially when subsidy programs or other options might actually be a better benefit for the worker. I'll get into that a little bit more as I move along. The third question is one I'm asked most often. What should we be doing to rebuild or renew the tourism workforce? And more so, to build a resiliency so that we can cope with future business disruptions and the uncertainty that COVID will continue to persist. So I'm going to start off with question one. What is our strategy to address the hundreds of thousands of tourism workers that lost jobs, were furloughed, or in some way are in a state of limbo? To begin, I'll start with data that shows the impact of job losses to the sector because of COVID. You can see that you can see the drop of workers between February and April. That was about a 10-week window where 881,000 workers lost their jobs. By the end of August, we had some recovery of about 572,000 jobs. That still left some 309,000 without work who had never returned. And incidentally, that is still short compared to last year's numbers at that time of 463,000 workers, many of which would have been students, for example, or other workers who would gain benefit from more hours. By the time we go into October, the most recent data, you can now see we're starting to track down, as would be expected. This gap will continue to grow as more of our workers lose their jobs. Now, there is much more on this topic on our website, and if you're interested, check out the interactive employment tracker tool or the September 28th webinar that contains detailed information on the analysis and impact of this situation. But today, we're still dealing with, as of October, about 375,000 workers who have been displaced since February. Pre-COVID, just to get a little more into this context, tourism, which is defined by 5 industries, had about 2 million, just over 2 million workers. The 2016 census indicated we had 1.8 million workers, but by March 2020, the labor force survey data showed that this industry, which was growing and had a growth trajectory that looked very positive, had just over 2 million. In other words, further growth was expected this summer until we hit COVID. The percentages by industry you see on the slide are based on the 2016 census data, but it's not expected to be very different with the growth of jobs identified by the labor force survey, which updated this number. As you saw in the earlier slide, 881,700 workers were displaced within the first 10 weeks. That's a loss of about 45% of the workforce. And this represented nearly 30% of all jobs lost in the economy at that time. The scale and magnitude is daunting. Very recent data from October showed that the unemployment rate in tourism remains bleak. And this is easily one of the hardest hit sectors, something I'm sure you're already well know. Overall, the employment rate for this sector is 14.5, in October was 14.5%. And as you can see, the travel services and accommodation sectors are most impacted, with higher unemployment rates for that month. In fact, accommodation services was the hardest hit on a percentage basis. Employment dropped by 18.5% from September, a loss of another 22,700 jobs. Both full and part-time positions were lost. The unemployment rate sat at 20.5. Again, more of this info and analysis is on our website, tourismhrcanada.ca. Check it out under the research tab or send us an email for more information. The one other number you see on this screen is the unemployment rate for the for the labor workforce overall, which sat at 8.9%. So you can see tourism had a harder hit than most of the other industries. Finally, one more slide. Information that was just released Friday from Stats Canada, the results of the Fall Business Conditions Survey. As you would expect, the 2 tourism-related sectors that are captured in this survey are showing more signs of stress. Based on current revenues and expenditures, they are more likely to say that they only operated for 6 months or less. They have a smaller share of the workforce is working remotely and are more likely to remain closed since summer, particularly in the case of arts and entertainment businesses. Businesses in the 2 sectors are more likely to decrease the number of employees in the next 3 months, although that could be due to seasonality. Food service and accommodation businesses still face labor shortages and recruitment difficulties to a greater degree than most businesses. They are also much more concerned about the rising cost of inputs, fluctuations in consumer demand, and maintaining sufficient cash flow. The arts and entertainment businesses say there is much more inconvenienced by government regulations than the restaurants and hotels say they are. This may be related to the higher share of the arts and entertainment businesses still being closed. So that was a lot of information on something you probably already know. The crisis is real and the challenge is daunting. So back to our question, what can and should we do to address all the people that lost their jobs? Well, there are many strategies at play. Today, I cannot go through all of these in detail. Instead, I'm going to show you an overview slide here with the main activities that Tourism HR Canada has undertaken to start to address the short and long-term needs specific to the recovery of the tourism workforce in Canada. These are listed in the 4 categories you see on the screen, and I'll speak to just a few and point out point you in a direction of a few information and tools. The online training, for example, was something we opened up for people. We had a significant take up of over 8,600 learners within the first few months that we made that available. We also shifted focus in our newsletter to look at worker retention activities. And you'll notice still today, we're focused on articles to help with those messages. The research work we've done has taken on a lot of prominence in most of the work done by the associations, by the federal government, by provincial associations. Of particular interest here is the employment tracker tool, which I will mention a little bit later in the presentation. And one other note here is the tourism recovery website, tourismrecovery.ca. It's to help with business continuity. These are all tools we made available, no cost, all in response to COVID. Indeed, there is much more to say about this slide, but I encourage you to go to our website for more information. So moving on, I want to get into question number 2. Remember, this is about the current staff. And here's the kind of challenges or the conundrum or the questions that people have. Can we hang on to our staff? Well, can we afford to? Can we bring some of them back? Again, can we afford to? If so, for how long? And we can give them enough hours. Is there enough job security? What about the government subsidies? Will this give us the resources we need to hang on to them or to call them back? If not, are we going to need to lay them off? And can we afford to lay them off? The cost might also bankrupt the company for some. Severance packages and the cost to build capacity, which is needed for recovery, can also be prohibitive. And the uncertainty about how long they need to manage in this context, especially with regular changes brought on to combat COVID, like opening one week, closing the next, some open but with some great constraints, etc. This is keeping everyone up at night. So this is a difficult topic. The ability to predict or to understand what's coming is really what it's all about. It's deeply disruptive, and the longer we have the restrictions, the greater the losses will be to companies. So what can they do? Well, one place to start is to be informed on the trends impacting the sector. The need to be informed starts with labor market information. Tourism HR Canada is doing its best to provide you with up-to-date daily updates on trends, and we're looking and to look forward more on what we can anticipate with future markets, knowing what the skill needs are. On our website, you can find a whole lot of information. I encourage you to check out the labor market tab, particularly the employment tracker tool. In addition, you will find information through our news site, and this data with supporting tools are guidance for employers and educators, associations, and governments. In there, we do hope that you'll find the kinds of information that will help you plan some of your initiatives or strategies. COVID-19 is another tab we have. Within COVID-19 is a key resource hub. It was something we launched early. Many associations do have them. What is unique about our site is we have more specific stuff on addressing workforce issues. And this is curated with information that helps you keep up to the important links that may help you navigate these issues, along with links to resources that may help you. One of the things we're keeping our eyes on has to do with the labor force the labor laws and the impacts of that. There is a growing emphasis and need on staffing issues, the very conundrum I talked about earlier. But this is a very complex issue, and there's a lot of change at play. There are 13 different systems in Canada with respect to labor laws, although there's a lot of common ground. But the laws are not keeping up with some of the challenges with COVID. So we're starting to do a lot more to track what's happening here, and we're going to continue to monitor these activities and hope to add to the tools that we already supply to help you sort out some of this. And as we see changes, we'll keep offering more tools to help you with these matters. Again, I encourage you to go check out this site. Tourism HR Insider is our newsletter, which comes out every 2 weeks. It comes free in your inbox. It's an easy read. And this is where we keep you up to date with the most current information. So if you're not able to go and check it out routinely, I encourage you to at least subscribe to this newsletter. And if we don't have all the answers, at least we're going to try to give you as much as we can. We'll look for your questions and we'll help you find further information. I'm going to move on to question 3 for a moment. This is one where I wanted to spend most of my time. What should we be doing to address the longer term concern, the better preparing for renewal and for post-pandemic growth? We first looked at this question in April, and we produced a white paper. By June, we did a bit of an update and delivered a webinar. These are both on our website for more information. I'm going to speak to a few of these items, but I'm going to extend this narrative today with additional things we think are very important to focus on. The Retention, Recovery, and Resilience White Paper identified 10 points that we knew we had to prioritize as part of the workforce recovery plan. The screen identifies those items briefly. We've been able to tackle a number of these items. Still, some are on our list. And even with those that we have been able to provide tools and resources and have supplied information and services to others, we are maintaining them and continuing to update them with new information or additional tools. The challenge, of course, is resources. And as we adapt to new circumstances over time, again, we'll be doing our best to keep up. I encourage you to think about, if you're interested in more about where we're up to with some of these and to know more about the current situation with the labor market, in January, we'll have our big update with another significant webinar to give you some insights. It'll pick up on a number of these strategies and beyond. Let me speak to a few of them that we have in there of particular importance. Now, I've raised this comment about tourismrecovery.ca before. If you've not been to this website, I encourage you to go there. Of course, it's both in French and in English. This is one of the main tools that emerged from our research and from demand of the workforce. Businesses have asked for the tools to help them navigate the very tricky situations in trying to recover and renew. In fact, to build resilience. I highlight this because this is a key resource that many are now relying on, and one we will continue to grow as demand warrants. Recently, we started to add a webinar series to these. Those, of course, are maintained on the site, and you're welcome to go through them at any time. You may also sign up for the next webinars coming up. You'll notice the website is defined by 5 categories: communications, the workforce itself, budget and finance, marketing, and business strategy. Each of these tabs contain a number of tools for you: current articles, checklists, different kinds of information. There are some webinars we're now starting to include, and we hope to add more based on demand. These are free and downloadable, and hopefully they're serving your needs. But what more should we be doing? This is where I'm going to spend the rest of my time speaking to some programs we think are particularly important moving forward, areas that we have been seeking the help by some of our partners at the national level, and particularly TIAC, to help with the advocacy of some of this work. One, we need to continue to look at policies and resources that will help retain workers. Something like the wage subsidy has been a very strong tool for this industry, and many have benefited. With the support and help of the national associations, there has been extension of the recovery program to help with this sector for some time, but still, we think more needs to be done. That's helping retain workers that we've been able to hold on to, but more needs to be done to those workers that we never brought back. Tourism HR Canada is currently in discussions with our partners at the federal level, both government and associations, and also we'll soon be having discussions with the provincial associations on some new programs we hope will be able to get some traction to help bring workers back, but in fact, to help retain them. I wish I could speak to that today, but because I don't have assurances of those yet, I'm unable to speak into more depth on it. The key strategy, however, is focused on the idea of training that would help businesses recalibrate what they're doing and be more strategic with tapping into new markets and a number of other things. Another key activity we think is important is to have programs to help secure work placements for students. We are increasingly concerned that all of the students that are in the post-secondary system in particular are not getting the opportunities for access to work placements in tourism businesses. This is because, of course, many businesses have closed, but indeed because they are at a much reduced rate of operating, many are unable to support the normal work placements as they would normally. However, the students are important to this industry and indeed will be important on recovery. So we are currently in discussions with the federal government to look at a program that we hope will be able to bring students into the workplaces for the work placements as one way to make sure that we keep them connected to the sector, but also to help, again, with employers getting those resources when they need them. Stay tuned for that one. We don't have answers just yet, but we're working on it. Finally, a third item on that side is one that we have been looking at for some time, and we call it looking at the sector as a destination for employment. We anticipate that as shortages of both workers and skills will become an increasing challenge for us as we recover, perhaps bigger than what it was prior to COVID. This is a real difficult scenario for us. The longer that we are shuttered or have restrictions, the longer it will take to recover, and our competitiveness is lost. So we are losing workers as we speak. Policies and programs must focus on the strategies we need to rebuild the tourism workforce. And one of those key items is to make sure that we can promote the value proposition, demonstrate why tourism is a good employment opportunity, and dispel some of the myths as we improve our image, particularly after having to demonstrate that it's safe environments to work and so on. So a campaign to help us to help us promote new tourism is going to be very essential, not just to attract new workers, but to help retain as well, and to produce some consumer confidence. Related to that, we feel there's a big need to start doing work at the community level. This is one of the items that was in our original 10-point plan. It's an area that we feel needs to be ramped up as we move forward. Tourism, by definition, tourism for many communities is the anchor economic engine, particularly in rural Canada. And as a result, many businesses that rely on tourism as the anchor are also struggling. So a community approach is necessary as we recover, not just to strengthen our workforces and to make sure we have the people we need when it's time to ramp up, but also to build consumer confidence and community confidence that tourism is still the right thing to be doing. It's about quality, it's about safety, and really it's about a strategy that involves leadership by this industry to engage the community in new strategies as part of the recovery planning. We've got a number of initiatives we have in mind for this. We are currently seeking funding and hope that we'll be able to proceed. Another item we have on our list of things we hope to be doing is around the continued emphasis of labor market information and trends. Tourism HR Canada has been the main supplier of the labor market information. It is known as a foundational labor market information system, one of a few in Canada, funded generously by Employment and Social Development Canada. Currently, the funding goes until April. We are hoping to get renewal on this funding, and I want to do a call out to thank the federal government for the extra funds we received in the last 6 months to help with specific analysis and data capture around the trends issued from COVID. But come April, we're going to be hoping that we have renewed contracts with the federal government. If not, we will struggle on this one. But labor market information will be an important part of our narrative moving forward. It helps chart the pathway, and it's used by a large number of players. As I said before, governments, both at the federal and provincial level, the associations, academia, businesses, and others. It's what's giving us an indication of where things need to go. The data, by the way, doesn't just track what's happened. We are doing special projections. This is in concert with Conference Board of Canada, and it's very interesting to see the kinds of trajectory we see. If we're lucky to see, once there is an opportunity for us to look at recovery, I'll just change tune here for a moment. The reality is that most of what we're seeing at the moment, based on current conditions, and again, for what we know, recovery could take us to 2024, 2025 before we see the same levels we were at pre-COVID. Now, that's dependent on a lot of factors, but this is the thing that everyone wants to know, is what markers will give us better information so that we can plan and be strategic. This is why that particular category is important for us to try and sustain. And finally, one other item that is absolutely a priority for us as we look forward is the need for continued support to offer free training and business tools for all of you. Online at the moment, our tourismrecovery.ca is our main venue for those activities. If we can get more funding, we will expand on that offer. There is a lot there now, but we also know that as we start to go through further recovery, that there is going to be greater needs. So we are making appeals to the federal government with this in mind. So this slide in some ways is all about us hoping to get the resources to continue to do more to support the industry. But I'm also hoping that it gives you a little bit of an insight on the kinds of things that we feel are important in terms of investments, not just from the association, but rather from businesses as well. It's through training and through the view that we need to redefine how we work so that the new tourism is going to thrive with being more resilient is basically what it's all about. And at the core of this is the dependency on our workforce to make sure that it is well prepared. Now, spotlight on TIAC for a moment. I just want to provide a brief shout out. We do work closely with TIAC. TIAC is also represented on our board. They share our message on matters concerning the workforce, and they skillfully advocate on behalf of the sector to help address our needs. In collaboration, we work with TIAC and with other organizations like the Hotel Association of Canada, the Indigenous Tourism Association of Canada, Restaurants Canada, Destination Canada, all of the provincial associations, and many more. We're all working to support recovery. The idea of being stronger together as a mantra is really an important message today. Everyone needs to act so that we are stronger together. Indeed, that is truly the same message we share as an association, especially when it comes to the workforce. I'm going to end with just a small slide here about a little bit more about what we have, because I feel that the kinds of questions we're getting, it's probably a helpful reminder to give you a bit of an insight on additional tools and information that might be of help to you. The 10 items you see on the screen are basically a response to the different labor market issues or matters that impact us most in Canada. A lot of these are centered around the need for skills or the supply of workers or improved mobility. But this manifests in different kinds of programs and services. Each of the items on this screen is an area of programming that this organization delivers on, with a large team of dedicated people who reach out and work closely with industry. Should you want any information on any of these items, please do let us know. One item in particular that might be of interest to many is our future skills framework. We will soon be doing a session on that in January or so to give you an idea of what it means in terms of skills looking forward. This is particularly timely because of COVID. With that, I just want to say thank you, wishing you and your family good health during these uncertain and unprecedented times. It's great that you could join us this afternoon. Have a great Congress.
That was a great session. I know I learned a lot. We're going to take a short networking break and we'll come back for our first keynote speaker. Renowned futurist Nicholas Badminton will share his ideas on what Canada's tourism industry might look like post-COVID-19. nous reviendrons pour écouter notre premier conférencier de marque. Nicholas Badminton, prévisionniste réputé, nous fera part de ses idées pour l'avenir de l'industrie touristique canadienne au lendemain de la crise de COVID-19. I'll see you on the main stage at 2:30 p.m. Eastern.